So let us now move into Green Bay, go to Wisconsin, baby, for the Green Bay Packers. The Jordan Love era is here. What do we expect in this new offense from him, and who is going to benefit or go backwards because of the move away from that former MVP, one of my least favorite players in the league, as you guys know, in Aaron Rodgers? But I do expect this to be a little bit of a step back, even though I shit on Rodgers all the time. I do think a very efficient passer can definitely sustain himself a quality uh entire aerial pie there. I don't know if I believe in Jordan Love. Now, all the talk so far in camp, from the receivers, from the coaches, from the beat writers, they don't see much of a difference in the way this offense is operating with Love. They think he is every bit as good. Some players on the team saying he's the best quarterback in the league. That scenario exists. I think it's about a 1% to 2% chance that actually happens when he's played. He definitely showed a step forward last year in his action compared to 2 seasons ago when we saw him on the field. So there were glimpses of a much better Jordan Love. But I file that under let's believe it when I see it, that this offense can hum at a similar level without Aaron Rodgers. I do expect a step back. And as you can see, that starts at the volume level. As I'll zoom in here, LaFleur's offenses have consistently been below league average, whether it's -10 below league average, -20, some years even -30 below league average. I'm expecting a really big drop off. He likes to play conservative. He doesn't push the pace. He does like to have close to a 50-50 split in his backfield, the pass versus rush ratio. So I think this is a very much in line overall pie, under 1,000 total plays, one of the slowest offenses in the league. Lean on our good secondary, our defense, and let it bleed out. To me, I see a similarity between this offense and the Tennessee offense he's coordinated before coming here. That was 49% pass, 51% rush. I don't think we'll get to that extreme, but even with Aaron Rodgers, this definitely reminds me of 2019. Rodgers MVP season too, 54% pass, 46% run, -50 plays overall in the league average. So I think it'll be a little bit of a slower paced, lower volume attack with a new quarterback at the helm. How do we see those pies being distributed? So ultimately, I do have him still being a fairly efficient touchdown passer. We saw that. I like LaFleur's scheme. He does like to run it when he throw it when he gets in close. So I do think 27 touchdowns, 4,000-ish yards. That's not impossible. He's also a little bit more mobile than Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love is. So 243 and 2. He's not a Konami threat, but I think Pat Mahomes, in terms of his escapability, his mobility, he can move. And so 4.5 yards a carry, a couple touchdowns on the ground, that seems reasonable for Jordan Love. So this would be an okay season should he put this up. And how do I expect the receivers to shake out from there? So I do have Christian Watson leading the way at 21% share. Again, a lower volume attack. 21% share only equates to 112 targets to lead this team, followed by Romeo Doubs, who some people are saying is actually leading this team in early camp. Seems like the go-to guy for Jordan Love. He's certainly singing Jordan Love's praises all offseason, saying there's no difference between him and Aaron Rodgers, getting himself in the good graces. Not a bad play there from Romeo Doubs, who definitely had his flashes as a rookie, was like the all-star of camp and carried that over to some big games. I really like Romeo Doubs. As you can see, there's not a huge gap in terms of volume between him and Christian Watson. I do expect a bit more production out of Watson, one of the freakish players in the leagues last year, especially as a touchdown scorer. The way this guy did so much with such little volume last year, never saw more than 8 targets a game, was wide receiver 67 in targets on the year, and yet still top 4 in touchdowns as a receiver. Watson also, from week 10 on, he was the starter. That's the first time he entered the starting lineup. Week 10 to week 13, he was a top 10 receiver in 4 straight games. He was a wide receiver 3 in fantasy. So we saw a brief glimpse of it. If he's on the field all the time and puts it together, this guy can be an absolute stud. Such an explosive athlete, great deep ball artist. After the catch, when they were drawing up screens for him, knifing through defenses, using him as a rusher. And they're already talking about expanding his route tree too. I love this player. I really am into Christian Watson. If this offense ends up throwing it more often than I expect, let's say LaFleur decides, I want to prove it to Aaron Rodgers was a douchebag, and let's show we're even better with Jordan Love. I didn't know. Coach sometimes does that. We could see both of these receivers spiking, but as just a talent edge, I do give that to Watson. His price tag, and most fantasy owners would do the same. So going right now around round 4, I like getting him there. I think he is an explosive guy with a ceiling for plenty more yards if, again, this offense is a bit more pass happy than I'm projecting. But I do think the volume he gets, like we saw last year, he's going to thrive. And you don't have that risk. Yes, Rodgers is typically, you'd want him for your receivers, but with a young guy like Christian Watson, a little bit raw, one drop, one misaligned route, and he's off the field with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's going to happen with Jordan Love. So I like him a lot this year. I do have him also rushing for 81 and a touchdown, just like we saw last year. So right around 1,000 total yards and 10 total touchdowns on 67 catches, with the ceiling for a lot more. But that felt like a fair projection so far. But it does bring us to Dubs, who going much later with Christian Watson around 4 guy. Dubs is going around pick 125 to 130 right now. Earlier drafts, I was getting him at 150. I have a lot of Romeo Dubs. He's in the top 4% of wide receivers owned in best ball drafts for underdog. As you can see, I think he'll be a little more consistent, 65% catch rate, a little bit less volume. So 66 catches, 812 yards. And he's a good touchdown scorer himself, too. So 6 touchdowns, not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. A quality wide receiver 3 flex play that I think is going way too late, especially because behind these two, there's not a whole lot that I expect you. They did draft Jaden Reed, and I like Jaden Reed. I think this is an exciting rookie coming in here, a great slot guy. He's battling Samari Torrey right now for that slot role. And I wouldn't be shocked if one of them wins it, is just outright the guy. And then, Reed goes from 75 targets to inheriting about 30 of these other ones and being right there with the others as a target share. That's within the realm of possibility. And Reed is certainly talented enough to potentially even take over Dubs at this point. So I like Jaden Reed. I do think there could be rookie growing pains. It seems like we've seen that often with the LaFleur system. It takes a little bit for these guys to fully get going. It is a more complicated offense than your typical scheme. So I do have him 642 and 4, an interesting player, but right now he goes only a few rounds, 1 to 2 rounds after Romeo Dubs, and I see a really big gap between those guys. Leading the way at tight end would be Luke Musgrave, who has been one of the stars of early training camp. He's been the tight end 1 already, running with Jordan Love, showing some great prowess after the catch, and coaches raving about how smart and far ahead this guy is than your typical rookie. So I do like Musgraves as a player and the hype coming into him. I just don't, again, think this aerial offense can sustain much more beyond Christian Watson, Romeo Dubs at 13% share, 70 targets, 48 catches, 576 and 3. It's an okay season, but not somebody I'm really going on my way to draft. The only other mouth to feed in the passing game would be, or at least big one, in the backfield. I do think Aaron Jones, who has been right around 60 to 70 targets through the last 8 years, I do think he stays right in line with all of that, especially with no Allen Lazard, no Randall Cobb. A lot of underneath work is going to be up for grabs. I think Aaron Jones is a great candidate to get right in there. He's consistently put up 3 to 5 receiving touchdowns throughout his career. So I really like him to remain a big part of the passing game with 50 catches or so, 400 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. And then we'll just move right into the ground pie and talk about how this gets distributed. So I do think a little more work goes to the quarterback as a rusher. But then just as we've seen the last 2 to 3 years with A.J. Dillon since he arose, it's a near 50-50 split once you get down there between these two guys. So I have Jones barely eking him out, 184 carries for Jones, 176 for A.J. Dillon. Both of them are good, efficient, talented runners. We only saw 2 touchdowns out of Aaron Jones last year on the ground. Just 4 seasons ago, he had 16, though. So I could see this one definitely meeting in the middle. It seemed like a few of the big plays that were come to know and expect out of Aaron Jones weren't quite there, that breakaway gear. He is getting up there in age, so maybe he's not hitting the wall, but just not nearly that big play guy we've seen. And maybe he is. We'll find out. I've always really liked the player, though. He still was the running back 8 last year. And over the last 4 years, he's been a running back 1 in points per game, really every single time. It breaks down into running back 8, running back 11, running back 5, and running back 2 in points per game his last 4 years. But it is a bit boom, bum, bust and how you get those. So that's the one risk with him. Another one of those guys, better in best ball, but the spikes will obviously boost your team forward. And then the bad weeks, the regressions, they won't be in your lineup when you have a guy like Aaron Jones, a little more maddening to own in redrafts. But then A.J. Dillon, he's been right around 40-ish% of the backfield work since he's arrived there in Green Bay. He was the lead touchdown scorer last year with 7. I do expect him to remain that main guy at the stripe with maybe a few less opportunities at the stripe. And he can catch too, 41 targets, 28 catches last year. He's not nearly Aaron Jones on that level, but it's not like it becomes a complete and utter zero. So I think 25 for 220 or so around 1,000 total yards, around 6 to 8 touchdowns. Seems okay for A.J. Dillon. Not a guy I've been getting too much for, but of course, the ultimate type of handcuff with benefits. When he starts, he does thrive. So if Jones misses any time, which he frequently does, it could be a nice boost to A.J. Dillon. That wraps up my Packers. As you can see, I'm not overly high on any of these guys outside of Christian Watson, who I do like as round 3, round 4 type of guy. Romeo Dubs, I love at his price tag in the 12th round. Aaron Jones goes close to Mixon, and I will go Mixon every time. I even had, as you guys can see, Madison projected higher than him at this point. So Jones is a guy that's coming down my rankings a little bit. And Jordan Love, if I'm going to take my stab on a late round guy, he's not the one I'm necessarily going all in on. But all the hype has been real about him. I just think this offense is going to be slow, ugly, bleed you out, and not something I'm overly interested in getting too invested in this year. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.